Well, good morning on this fine December day. The sun is shining outside. We just had a massive rainstorm, and it's clear as a bell now. My name is Philip Doucette, and today in my new studio I'll be showing you how I make one of my favorite blown glass ornaments in the lamp working torch. I'll be making what I call the silvered cranberry. I've already lit the torch, and the first thing to do is to put on these very attractive goggles. These are Ace contrast clip-ons, and they will allow me to see through the very bright yellow flare that you will see, and allow me to pick out details. I'll also be using a custom mix that I have made of opaque red Fritz and a commercially available gold pink Frit in a large chunk. So the first step, as always in making these ornaments, is to make the collar. This is the point where the ornament cap attaches, and it's just simply a wrap around this stainless steel tube that I have dipped in bead release and allowed to dry. I'm using mostly Italian bead making glass. I can never remember now which company is the one that produces it, whether it's Efrite or Moretti. I believe they've merged again. In any case, very nice stuff. Flows very nicely. The temperature's in the torch. And there we have the gather that I will use. And you simply roll it on the marver, which is a block of graphite, and make a nice long tube. Now we add the mass of glass that covers over the end of the blowing tube. First a wrap to build out the diameter. And then a wrap to cover over the end of the tube. Now it's simply a waiting game of building up a mass approximately the size of the first joint of your thumb, or my thumb in this case, which will produce an ornament about the size of a large egg. It usually takes between 7 and 8 passes to get enough glass onto the end of the blowing tube. And the neater you are about doing this, about getting everything nice and centered, the easier and quicker it will be to get the hot mass of glass into a centered position for the actual blowing. I started out making these ornaments in the hothead torch, and I must tell you that the quiet susurration of just listening to the oxygen concentrator, as opposed to the roar of that torch, and the speed at which I can work, are a great change as far as I'm concerned, and they really add to my enjoyment of the atmosphere here in my new studio. I think we'll make 1 or 2 more passes, maybe just 1. I often will heat up just a large ball on the end. place that directly at the bottom axis. There we are. Put that down on the steel. So now we have the mass of clear glass that is the base of the ornament. I'll give that just a light marver. You don't have to be too particular about it because this is going into the frit. The first frit is, as I said, a mixture of opaque frits. I think there were 5 different reds in here. They're very, very heavily ground. They're just this side of sugar. And they spread out over the surface and they provide an underpinning for the cranberry to push apart. There we are, rolling into the little cup. It comes out like that, and back into the torch to keep this down. We'll regularize the shape again. Now, the cranberry reduction frit. It's beautiful. Well, they call it gold pink, dark gold pink, but it comes out as a cranberry on the ornament. And this comes off in large flakes that often pop and fly into the surface of the table, like that. Now, before the meltdown is complete, to capitalize on the time it takes to do, the final component of this is fine silver wire. And attaching this is a little bit tricky. You actually just attach the wire to the surface and then take it out of the flame and spin it around and around out of the flame, because any heat will cut the wire and you'll have to reattach it. There we go. I did approximately 8 lines around. And what that wire will do is that will break up in the heat into little dots that will form all over the surface of the finished ornament. And often those little dots as well, they will cause a cellularization effect where they'll cause a bubble, or what looks like a bubble or a capsule underneath it. So you'll get a long teardrop shape when you blow the final ornament. We're getting a nice plug shape there now, and you can see that's pretty much the size of a big thumb. Now I'm going to use the other hand marver to do a little adjustment of the shape. First, I take the shoulder and spin it down like that. Doing a little touch-up on the collar. And then again, a slightly shallower angle. To get this conic shape. And this is the best shape that I've found to heat back into the form that blows a nice egg-shaped ornament. The very important thing to do here is to keep the glass centered on the blow tube. It's very easy to move it off center and then you end up with an odd shape or banana shape. The other thing that's important to remember is that when blowing, you're not puffing and blowing the house down. You're actually, well, you are puffing, but very light little puffs which allow the glass time to adjust and move in an even way out from the central point where you're putting in the air. So you can see we're getting a shape. It looks a little bit like a classic sack. And it's reaching a point where the glass is ready to blow. Now, I'll stand for this, but I'll try to hold the blowing in camera frame so you can see it. I usually just slide back on my chair and blow over the concrete floor. Another important thing is to keep it rolling out of the flame a bit. The outside cools, but the inside stays warm, and you do a count of 8. 6, 7, 8, and then you're ready to blow. And there we have it. And you can see there's the characteristic staining of the clear glass by the silver. Makes it a little yellow. Produces a nice sort of wintry effect. It looks like a piece of fruit that's been frozen on the branch. I call it the silver cranberry. You keep it out of the kiln for about 35 seconds, and then it goes into my little annealing kiln where it will anneal with the rest of the batch for an hour and a half. And after removing it from the tube and cleaning it out a little bit, you get this silvered cranberry Christmas ornament. That's how I make them. I'm Philip Doucette. Have a Merry Christmas.